Hey guys, and welcome back for another video. So not too long ago, the Super Adventure Box Festival started off again, and for those of you guys who have never played before, I'd like this video to kind of help you guys get started and help you get the most out of this year's Super Adventure Box. For those of you guys who have been watching this channel for a while, you might have seen my original Super Adventure Box video where I was way too excited about this event to even talk about it, and I will try to avoid that this time around. Super Adventure Box! Super Adventure Box! So to get started with the Super Adventure Box, you just need to head to Rata Sum, and you could take any of the upper waypoints. This because there are bound to be so many players surrounding the actual Super Adventure Box itself that you can find it from literally any of those waypoints. Once you make it to the big blue cube, just head on up those stairs and you can enter. After a short loading screen, you'll be in the Super Adventure Box hub world, and it's here that you'll see a bunch of houses around a circular area. Each one of these houses corresponds to a different world. Unfortunately, as of right now, there are only 2 worlds with a few zones each to explore, but there's still plenty to do, I assure you. If you approach the far right house from where you walked in, you should see a house with a 1 on the outside of it, and that is World 1. If you've never played, then this is where we'll have to start. Approach the house itself, and a little UI will pop up. It does recommend 5 players here, but I'll tell you right now that all the footage you're seeing in this video was just me running solo, so if that's more your play style, then no worries. Once inside the house, you should see a few NPCs, 2 of which are clouds. The cloud on your left is Infantile Mode. This will add some clouds to each level that when you jump on them will add rainbow bridges that bypass the better part of this content. So if you really just want to see what all the fuss is about, get in, get out, this is probably your best option. In the center of the room, there will always be an NPC that will actually just give you the regular Super Adventure Box. And off to the right hand side, you'll see an angry cloud, and this cloud unlocks Tribulation Mode. Tribulation Mode is essentially as hard as Super Adventure Box gets, so for now let's just focus on that center NPC and just play through the game normally. Selecting the zone will start up another short loading screen, but after that you'll actually be in-game and ready to experience Super Adventure Box. The way this entire game mode works is it's basically a 3D take on old 2D games. Games like Zelda and Mario show a lot of influence here, so if those are your kind of games, then you might really like this content. Also worth mentioning is that in the arcade retro feel of this entire event, even the music itself has been revamped to sound more in tune with an arcade, older sounding game. So if you guys typically don't play with Guild Wars 2's music on because you've heard the track so many times or because you prefer to listen to your own music, I would still recommend, at least for your first playthrough, giving these tracks a listen. For example, your health has been replaced with hearts, your skills have been replaced with just 1 stick for right now anyway, and there's actually a lives system, so that if you die too many times, you'll actually have to use a continue coin in order to keep playing. The continue coins are awarded for doing certain things in the Super Adventure Box. The bulk of the content here is just running around killing enemies with that sweet stick they start you off with, and as you kill these enemies, you're going to notice they drop little blue orbs called baubles. Think of baubles as like the coins from Mario, and these baubles can be used as ammunition for some of the weapons that you'll get later on, and can also be saved up if you want to use them outside of the Super Adventure Box on some pretty cool retro looking skins for your character. Every so often, you'll be hit with a checkpoint. You'll know you're there when you see sort of a piano on the ground. You should see keys lit up depending on how many players are playing. So if you're just playing solo, there will only be 1 key you need to hit to make the wall go down so you can progress. But if you bring a couple friends along, you will need every player to stand on one of these keys in order to make it to the next part. Again, like some older games, there are power-ups that you'll usually find in brown barrels scattered around each of these worlds. Breaking open open the barrels will actually drop the power-up, and these power-ups are things like stealth, bonus damage, and faster movement speed. Occasionally while you're playing, you may notice a door, and a lot of times those doors lead you into shops. There are also hidden shops in the game, so keep that in mind, but a lot of the time what you're getting out of these shops is a new weapon, a new item, or a new upgrade. You can also buy things like 1-ups and health potions just to increase your longevity while playing. What I tend to do is save up my baubles until I get all the unlocks before actually spending these on anything else. This because Guild Wars 2 is a game of many skills and abilities, and when you first come in here you don't really have any. So in order to fill your bar, so to speak, it's best to unlock some new items. As you play through, you'll get things like a slingshot that you can use to damage enemies at range, a mini bomb that you can explode walls much like Legend of Zelda to find secret areas, a whip that will stun enemies temporarily. Speaking of stuns, eventually you'll encounter some plants that'll stun you when you get too close. Eventually you'll get a candle that will burn those so they can't stun you anymore, and as an additional use you'll be able to use it to clear out some foliage in the way if you ever get stuck behind some trees or a bush. If you like the idea of searching these maps endlessly for loot, or at least looking at a YouTube video with all the dig locations, you can pick up a shovel that will allow you to dig for buried treasure, and further along you'll get a wooden whistle that when you play a certain melody will actually show you some places you can drop those bombs to find some hidden areas. And it doesn't just end there, there are upgrades for a lot of these items as well, although I won't be covering those here because I feel like as long as you have that core group of those items, you'll have fleshed out your skill bar, and you'll have access to plenty of things to keep you interested in Super Adventure Box. Before we move on from shops and items, I just want to make mention of something real quick, and that's that everything inside of each one of these shops is completely destructible. The shopkeeper won't be very thrilled about this, obviously, but they do tend to drop more baubles and sometimes some health if you need it. As you move through these maps, you might sometimes come across a chest, and if you don't have a key for that chest, you can pick one up at a shop, but a lot of times what that means is that you just need to kill enough enemies around that chest, and one of them is bound to drop the key. When you pick up a key, it does replace your weapon, but don't worry, as you can still use this key at the same level of effectiveness as your stick that you start off with. And to open a chest, all you have to do is walk up to that chest with the key and hit the second ability. A lot of these chests mostly just have baubles in them, but instead of just one bauble, you can get 5, 10, or 20 baubles instead. Most zones end with a bit of a boss fight, and depending on how far you've progressed will determine how difficult this boss fight will actually be. In the beginning, it's more or less just running around a cage that you'll have to damage until it eventually breaks. This while a floating head shoots lasers at you. All I ever seem to do here is just sort of kite that head and damage the cage until eventually it breaks. At the center of most of these cages, there's a guy you're trying to save, as well as a chest with sometimes a small bonus chest inside with, as you might have guessed, even more baubles. But sometimes you may also get a continue coin, and if you're super lucky, these chests will sometimes contain an actual skin for outside of Super Adventure Box as well. And that, guys, is most of the basics for the zones inside of Super Adventure Box, but there is one thing I'd like to mention. If you're walking along some flowers and you happen upon some dog bees, or very large bees with dog faces, you should follow them instead of just killing them for the baubles that they're probably holding. This because they're going to take you to some secret areas around the map, and a lot of times these result in an optional boss fight. For instance, in just the very first zone, you can fight a giant dog bee queen thing, and it's pretty awesome. It's a pretty difficult fight, and it's totally optional. While killing these optional bosses is definitely fun, there is a bit more to it than that. Just behind the boss, there is often something you can wail on that will give you even more baubles. Beyond enemies, the maps themselves are pretty brutal at times, so I'll tell you a few of those hazards that you might need to look out for as well. There's green water. Anytime you see that, that will poison you slowly over time, so try not to stand in that whenever possible. There are platforms that are temporary, like leaves that will eventually break. clouds that will eventually disappear, and even some bridges that as you walk across them, the planks that make up the bridge will actually fall and you'll need to keep moving or you'll fall too. Some pathways that look like obvious ways to advance will shoot a bunch of arrows down at you and do a bunch of damage. And in some of the later levels, the majority of the map is covered in slippery ice, so if you've played Mario, then you probably know how that works out. Now, outside of those cage boss fights with the floating head, there are several other boss fights that take place in this game, but only 2 of which really merit any further explanation. I've been able to complete nearly every other fight just through sheer willpower, so I know you guys can do it if you put your minds to it, but 2 other bosses actually have kind of mechanics, and I'll talk about those before moving on to the rewards and wrapping this up. The first boss I'd like to tell you guys about is the Frog King. For this boss, you're going to need to jump down onto some lily pads that again are temporary platforms, so be sure to hop across those very quickly. Right next to the Frog King, you will see some larger lily pads that do not sink, but are right in the line of attack for anything this frog can do. As far as what you need to look out for, well, this frog is going to occasionally ground pound, making ripples in the poison water that surrounds him, which can mess you up pretty bad, so you want to dodge those whenever possible. And if you look at the frog's face, his eyes tend to show you where he's about to do this attack, so just keep an eye on that. As far as how to actually deal damage to this frog, you'll need to look for openings when you can attack the necklace that he's wearing. This will make little jewel shards chip off, and you'll need to carry one of those with you. And when the frog stops attacking you, to tilt his head back to kind of feed, you need to throw that jewel into his mouth, which will stun him, and you'll be able to do damage. You'll just need to rinse and repeat this until his health bar has been depleted. The other boss I'd like to tell you guys about is actually the current end boss, at least until we get more worlds in Super Adventure Box. This boss is the Wizard. Now, the Wizard does require an item from an earlier fight that I did not mention in this guide, but that fight isn't really all that difficult. Towards the end of the ninja level, you'll encounter a mini boss, and this boss essentially has the power glove from Nintendo that allows him to will blocks into existence and throw them at you. All you'll have to do is dodge the blocks and hurt him when you can. Of course, defeating him will get you that gauntlet that he had, and while it doesn't allow you to summon blocks at your will like he did, it does allow you to move some blocks in some of the puzzles for later levels. But now with that out of the way, let's get back to the Wizard. At the start of this fight, the Wizard's going to fling some magic at you, and you may notice that the shape of that magic is a hand. So of course, all we have to do is high-five his magic back into his face until eventually the first phase of this boss is over. Once the Wizard's health's been depleted, he'll turn himself into a dragon, and the platforms that you've been fighting on start to free fall. The dragon will fly around these platforms and spawn some lightning enemies that you'll need to take out. Once you've dealt with all those enemies, the dragon will dive on one of the outside platforms, so be sure to watch him so that he doesn't take out the platform you're standing on. Right after the dragon takes out one of these platforms, it'll knock him out and he'll fall down to the center platform where you'll be able to do some damage until, again, he'll start this process all over again. And that, guys, is pretty much the bulk of the most difficult content in this game. As long as you're ready for a little bit of punishment, there's no reason you can't get through all of these worlds in one night just like I did. So now you know the basics of Super Adventure Box, and you even know how to deal with some of the more complicated boss fights, but you don't really truly know why people play this to the extent that they do when it comes into the game. When you leave Super Adventure Box, you can actually just go directly to the left of the blue cube, and you'll see a couple of NPCs that, of course, are festival vendors. As always, there will be a tab of general Guild Wars 2 stuff that you can buy with these baubles, but if you want the festival-specific rewards, you're going to need to first convert your baubles into bauble bubbles. A bauble bubble is 250 regular baubles, and you're going to need about 35 bauble bubbles and a little bit of gold to get any of those holographic 8-bit skins I was going on about earlier. Now, if this sounds like a tedious pain, don't worry too much, because I believe there are about 2 achievements during this festival that'll actually just reward you with a chest that allows you to pick any one of the blue holographic 8-bit skins for your character. And I do mention that these skins are blue because they do come in green, red, and yellow variants, but you're gonna have to put in quite a bit more work for those. But if you guys really want to know how to get some of these, just let me know down in the comments and I'll be sure to get you a video as soon as I can. But anyway guys, that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover in this video. I hope this helps anybody out there who's coming pretty late to the party and just wants to know how this even works before maybe even getting into a party and trying this with other people. I hope that if you were ever struggling on some of the harder bosses, you now have a better idea of what to do during these fights. But more than anything guys, I hope you can see why I enjoy this content so much and why I feel like it's worth your time to just even play Super Adventure Box despite the rewards. But anyway guys, thank you so much for watching, and remember, Super Adventure Box! Oh, what was I thinking? I'll see you in the next one.